stories to start your morning, sponsored by Midas, open since 1956. And our top story this morning takes us to Dallas. Reports yesterday surfacing that Cowboys players are starting to get frustrated with the coaching staff there in Big D. After a 2-4 start, some starting to speak out. Anonymous Cowboys players now saying head coach Mike McCarthy's staff is totally unprepared and they just aren't good at their jobs. Well, McCarthy was asked yesterday about some of his players not buying in. Here's what he had to say.
And I just really go back to my first meeting with the football team. I've always stated this to every team that I've coached. I think it's important to handle things as men. I mean, if you do have something to say publicly that is of most importance, I think it's important to say it to the individual, particularly in a group dynamic setting, and especially in the game of football, especially for the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, Brandon, start with you. Are you surprised that some anonymous players are speaking out against the coaching staff there in Dallas?
I'm not surprised. This is what bad teams do, and unfortunately, from experience, I've been on a few bad teams and a few bad locker rooms. I've been a part of the solutions at times, and I've been a part of the problem. So I've learned firsthand, and I've seen it firsthand. But I want to do this. I want to speak to the player, then I want to speak to the coaches. Speaking to the players first. This is absolutely the wrong way to do it. This is bad. You don't do this. You got to give yourself an opportunity to turn things around. You got to give yourself an opportunity to get this right internally. Going out in the media and definitely not putting your name on it is the wrong way to do it. It's hard in the National Football League to win a game. Week in and week out, it is hard. You're getting the best of the best from the best athletes in the world. You can't do this. And you also got to look yourself in the mirror. There's simple things out there that you guys can control. The coaches, it's not their job to put two hands on the football. It's not their job to not throw picks. It's not their job to go out on the field and protect the ball. And on the defensive side, we're talking about simple coverages. We're talking about man-to-man. We're talking about quarters coverage, backside post. You have nobody in your zone. Go to the post because you know that's the biggest threat. So for that reason, you probably need to keep your mouth shut because this is not the way to do it. And if you want to be shipped out, then keep doing what you're doing because they eventually will find who you are. Well, now speaking to the coaches, coaches, you have to do a good job. You have to do a good job of listening to your players. We are smart. Players are smart. They know what they're seeing out there. They're the ones on the field. So y'all have to do a good job of sitting down together, listening to each other, coaches, not being stuck in your ways and your philosophy and the ways, the things that you've been doing for 30, 40 years. You got to be able to listen to your smart players and say, you know what, this makes sense. Let me make these adjustments. Because if you don't, you're going to lose your locker room. Guys are going to do their own thing. Small groups are going to form, and now you lose the integrity of everything you're trying to do. And so many coaches don't do this. Pete Carroll is the perfect example. They have this thing where it's called Tell the Truth Monday. Why do they do that? Because they give everybody in the organization the opportunity to speak your piece. After that meeting, you bet not go into the locker room. You bet not go in the cafeteria and start complaining. Because if you complain, you will be shipped out of there.
Well, listen, if I were part of Tell Your Truth Monday for the Dallas Cowboys, here's be my truth. Y'all suck. Everybody. The coaches might stink. Through 6 games, the players definitely stink. Who's the player on the Dallas Cowboys through 6 weeks that can be like, I've been awesome? Maybe Alden Smith, the guy who's been out of football 5 years. He's been your highest performer, and that's really just one game against the Seahawks. Some of the receivers might say, oh, I'm on pace for a 1,200-yard season. Yeah, well, what are you on pace for as far as when it's a one-score game, when it's not garbage time late? It's not the coach's fault there's drop passes in the end zone. It's not the coach's fault the highest paid running back in the history of the NFL can't hold on to the football. It's not the coach's fault, to Brandon's point, guys are breaking down in the most simple coverages imaginable. So, Jenna, to be clear, I'm not defending the coaches. The coaches might stink, but through 6 weeks, the players definitely stink. And so if you're going to go to the media and say they're not any good at their jobs, I'm just really curious. Are you good at yours? Because through 6 weeks, there hasn't been any evidence of it.
All right, well, what they're not going to do right now is fire players. So then we got to obviously talk about the one thing that's going to come up this week, and that's the head coach Mike McCarthy and accountability. We've seen two coaches already let go this season, right? We saw Dan Quinn in Atlanta. We saw Bill O'Brien in Houston. All right, Wiles, let's start with you. Should Mike McCarthy be on the hot seat already in Dallas 6 games in?
Look, this is a question where the answer is always yes if you're asking it. The other one, hey, is the gas on in the kitchen if you're smelling gas? The answer is yes. So the fact that we're asking, is Mike McCarthy on the hot seat, then yes. Nick, there's no other way. I don't know if you point to all of these issues, who are you going to blame? I don't think if you're Jerry Jones, you can say, oh, you can sit back and be like, you know what? It's actually a confluence of several issues combined with the pandemic and the lack of preparation and Dak's injury that is leading us to be in first place even though we're absolutely terrible. That's not going to happen. You know what's going to happen. It's got to be one person's fault. And if it's not Mike McCarthy's fault, then it's got to be someone on the defense's fault, Nick.
Well, here's the problem. It's way too early. I'm going to go in Wild's territory and do a messy analogy here. Wild's analogies aren't messy, mine are, but analogies Wild's territory. Sometimes folks get married and 6 months in, it's like, this was a massive mistake. And the quicker we pull the ripcord, the better it is for everybody. That typically, though, doesn't happen if they dated for 10 years. Mike McCarthy was coaching this league for a decade. You can't get the divorce months into the marriage. Like, you know who you hired. You've got to see it through, I would argue, Brandon, more than just through 6 games, more than just 16 games. I think it would be insane, Brandon, to fire Mike McCarthy at any point prior to the meat of year 2. Like, I think this is way, way too early to even be having this discussion.
Listen, I don't even know how to respond. I'm just laughing right now because this would be the first time that coach get fired in first place. They're in first place. Nick, we're having this discussion and they're in first place.
Well, that part I can't sign off on. I don't care about
this. This is the wildest storyline of the entire year. It's a global pandemic. There's no offseason, no preseason. Guys are playing, guys aren't playing. And we're talking about the Cowboys as if they're they may be one of the worst teams in NFL. Coach McCarthy is not on the hot seat. Who is on the hot seat is everybody on the defensive side. But I just think this is the wildest conversation because they still control their destiny. So for that reason, Coach McCarthy, he just need to walk into that locker room, Jenna, and just look those guys in the eyes and say, this is how we do things. We don't go to the media. If you do that, this is absolutely not. You will be shipped out of here, players and coaches.
All right, well, from bleak times in Dallas to some happy times down in Miami, we'll switch gears and talk about Tua Tagovailoa, who will reportedly take the reins as Miami's starting quarterback. Miami's on the bye this week. They've got a little extra time to prepare for Tua's first start in Week 8. That'll be against the Rams. Brandon, you think this was the right move by Miami to move on from Fitzy and hand over starting duties to Tua?
2 ways to look at it. From a player's perspective, no. The guys love Fitz. Fitz is actually playing well. I want Fitz to stay in there. From an organization standpoint, it's the right decision. Because at the end of the day, and Nick, you said it earlier, what is the goal here? Is the goal for us just to have a decent year and to compete, or is the goal for us to win championships? And I think the goal for everyone in the National Football League should be to win championships. For that reason, he gives you that. You got other rookie quarterbacks. You take this guy at number 5, and you're saying, let's develop this guy now, whether at the end of the year he steps into his own, or maybe it's this offseason or next year. So for that reason, the organization made the right choice. But from a player being in that locker room, I would be a little bit sad right now.
Listen, Fitzy didn't lose this job because it was never his. The moment they drafted Tua, it was his job once he got healthy. And so Wilds, with Fitz or Tua, they're not winning a championship this year. I think with either one of them, they could get to 9 wins and maybe sneak into the playoffs. But the earlier you can get Tua reps, the better. And Wilds, now he gets the bye week to prepare as well, so I think it's the right time.
That's right. When Kurt Warner had a winning record when the Giants pulled him to start Eli Manning, who then lost a bunch of games. Fast forward a few years, Eli's in the Super Bowl. The next year, Kurt Warner's in the Super Bowl. So, Brandon, your guy Fitz. Maybe this is a good sign for him. Get in the Super Bowl a few years from now.
Now,
hey, I want this so much for Fitz. Fitz, if you make it to the Super Bowl before you and 9.
All right, we'll round out. We'll play a little take your pick, talking some baseball tonight. Game 2 of the World Series. Dodgers up 1-0 already over the Rays. Who wins Game 2 tonight? Start with you, Wilds. Take your pick. Dodgers or Rays?
Look, I think the Dodgers win. The Rays are starting Snell, who just pitched on Sunday, threw 40 pitches. I don't know how many innings they're going to give him, Nick.
I'm going to go with the Rays. Great-looking pitcher, Blake Snell. And I don't mean just his pitcher. I mean he's a great-looking man. Blake Snell, I think they even up the series tonight.
Don't bet it, Nick.
Blake
Go
Snell's
with the Dodgers.
Joke,
the Dodgers win it, Jenna.
All right,
Blake Snell,
Game 2 tonight,
best-looking player in
7:30
baseball.
on Fox.
Google
Have a great day.